There we go. That is a good looking trout right there. If you are new to bait casting reels and are having trouble with setting up the reel so it doesn't backlash, or if you're curious about going to a bait casting reel but don't know where to start with the settings, I'm going to show you what to do in this video. So let's get right to it. Okay, so here is the adjustments that you need to make when it comes to getting the settings right on your bait casting reel. There's two of them that we're going to be concerned with. The first one is going to be the spool tensioner. That's this knob right here. It's usually located on the side wherever the handle is at, and the other is going to be the brake control. It's usually a dial on this side. Now, there are some reels that are going to have brake controls that are built inside of them, but the vast majority of the reels that you're going to be looking at is going to be set up just like this. There's going to be a dial on this side, and there's going to be a knob on this side. So what we want to do is we want to take our rod, we want to put it level to the ground, and we'll have a lure tied on the very end of it. And what I'm going to do is open up the bail of the reel, or the spool of the reel. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to let that lure drop and hit the ground. What I'm trying to accomplish is to see that this reel is going to stop moving before the line starts to overrun. So this is going to be the best setting for beginners. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hold my rod level, and then I'm going to click on the button that's going to release the spool, and I'm going to let that lure free fall without touching the spool. And the idea is to let that spool stop before it hits the ground. It doesn't keep overrunning. So we're going to go ahead and click that, and as you can see right there, it actually makes a mess. And what we want to do is we want to keep that from happening. So let me go ahead and clear this out, and then I'm going to show you the adjustment that we're going to need to make to keep this from happening so you can get out there and make casts without backlashes. So we're going to start all over. We're going to keep our rod level. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up. It usually doesn't take much. Maybe from there, I'm going to go about a half of a turn. That's all I did. And then we're going to go ahead and repeat that step. I'm going to go ahead and hold the rod level. I'm going to push the button right there, and then I'm going to let that lure fall. Obviously, I didn't do enough, so we're going to go ahead and start all over again. We're going to clear that out. And then we're going to just keep on doing this until we get it to where that lure is going to hit the ground and that spool is not going to overrun. Okay, so we made our adjustment there, and as you can see, we had just a tiny bit of overrun, but that's perfectly fine. If it goes maybe one revolution past the stop, that's going to be good. But what you want to do is you want to keep on making that adjustment to where you're not getting any overrun, where that line is going to loop around itself. Now, one thing I did fail to mention is the mag control on the other side. Most of your reel manufacturers are going to have these starting from a low number to a high number. The higher number is going to be your highest amount of brake control on there. You want to start with that on a relatively high number, maybe 9 or 10, depending on your skill level, and that's going to help you from getting those backlashes. Now, in this video that I just showed you, this is a setup for brand new people that are just new to bait casting and they're having issues with backlashing. This is not for maximum distance casting. This is just so you can get out there and get that muscle memory down. Now, when it comes to maximum distance castings, what we can do with our settings is we need to turn them down a little bit. So after you get a feel for how the reel works and the muscle memory of your thumb and how it feels on the spool, you can start making those adjustments to get the longer cast. Okay, so let's talk about the adjustments that you need to make to get the maximum casting distance out of your bait casting reel. What you're going to want to do is take your spool tensioner right here, and you want to loosen it up to the point where you can actually take your thumb and you can wiggle the spool back and forth. And then what you'll want to do is tighten it just to the point where you're not getting any more of that side-to-side wiggle. And what that's going to do is that's going to loosen up that spool to where you can get that spool, the high speed right when you start it off. It's going to have the least amount of resistance to get that lure up. And then what you can do at that point is use your brake control adjustment to adjust the amount of brake that you're going to have. And then if you change your lure, or if you're changing the direction of how you're throwing, say you were throwing with the wind and now you're throwing against the wind, you can use that brake control to help you out in that situation. So any change up that you have like that, that's your friend right there, is your brake control. Now I'll give you another little tip when it comes to setting these up properly is if you are getting backlashes, try and pay attention to when the backlash is happening. Is it happening right when you let your thumb off of the spool, or is it towards the end of the cast? Those are two different adjustments that you have to make. If the backlash is happening at the beginning of the cast, it's typically your spool tensioner that needs to be tightened up. If it's happening towards the end of the cast, it's your brake control that needs to be dialed up a little bit. So that's going to help you out determine on what adjustment that you need to make. So if you're new to bait casting reels and you're having issues with backlashing, follow these steps and before you know it, you'll be casting like a pro. And if you're interested in purchasing a bait casting reel, we do have some available at fishstrong.com. We have Daiwa, 13 Fishing, and some others. And remember, insiders, you do get free braid line filling with our bait casting reel and free shipping if you buy from fishstrong.com. And if you want to see a video on which reel is better for you, whether it be a bait casting or a spinning reel for your situation, click on the link down below.